Redditors who have died temporarily / nearly died. Did your life flash before your eyes? If not, what did happen? My heart stopped when I was in the air for 34 seconds. Not really a life flash, but a very calming feeling of as I describe it. What was I even worried about? Everyone / everything is going to be fine. I bled to death after a car accident. I went somewhere. I can't say for sure if it was real or just a weird chemical trip in my brain, but the best way I can describe it was like being in a hallway made out of space. It was beautiful and incredibly peaceful. I saw flecks of memories passing by me, but I wasn't focused on them. Then a woman's voice that felt like it was everywhere told me I could wake up and suddenly I was alive again. There was absolutely nothing. No light, no memories, nothing. It was like it didn't exist for about an hour or so. I didn't experience the passing of time either, so the entire time I was dead seemed like an instant. It was sort of like teleporting into the future. I had a near-death overdose experience at a young age. I remember a black presence came to me, and I knew it was my death. I felt very strongly that it was not my time to go, that I had so much more to do. I'm security guard and couple years ago guy attacked me in the parking garage and stabbed me. When I was bleeding and losing consciousness I didn't really saw memories, it was more like memory with better outcome. Sorry about my bad English, not my first language. I had my heart stopped at the hospital because my heart was going 150 BPM per hours. I even had a readout printed out of me flatlining. I had a heart condition and was on acid. My life did not flash before my eyes. It felt like a black cloud spreading through my body, the heart stopping injection. Which makes no sense. I should note I have over 4 years drug and alcohol free now. But when it was over the doctor was walking out of the room, turned to me and said better living through chemistry. Huh. Crazy experience, would not recommend. I tried to kill myself, and while I'm not 100% sure I died, it's hard to verify, since I wasn't all there and no one will give me details. All I remember was just being. There was nothing, no light, no forms, no people and no voice. It was sort of like a state of just understanding and peace. Worst part of it is that I miss that feeling. I have a mental disorder, and I'm sure that's at least 85% of what's talking when I say that, but it was just such a relief to be in that state. I was told I was in the air for days and no one was sure if I was going to wake up at all, but it lasted for what seemed to be a blink of an eye, but also felt like eternity while I was in it. There was no flash of my life, nothing but darkness. If you've experienced true dark, as in being in a cave with no visible light, that's the best way that I can describe it. Like that, and a deep sigh after you learn that something horrible didn't happen. That moment when you've sighed out a full breath, and there's that single moment of satisfaction. That's what I felt and saw when it happened. I nearly drowned in a swimming pool when I was 9 years old at a hotel when my family were on a holiday. I remembered it like it was yesterday. At that moment, my legs and arms locked up. My lungs felt like stone. And then I slipped out of consciousness for I'm not sure how long. I woke up to the lifeguard pumping my chest. During the time I was unconscious, I was floating, probably because I was in water, in space filled with stars. I tried to swim over to one of the stars and found out they were fragments of my memories, voices, noises, smell, faces, places, all jumbled together. But a big part of those fragments were my mom, my dad, and my 2 younger brothers and a cousin who was also my best friend. It wasn't like a memory or anything. To put it into words, it was more like a soup of everything I've ever seen, heard, tasted, smell, and feel all there. Then I woke up. I've never seen that vision again, but I still remember it clear as day. I overdosed when I was 14. I gradually transitioned from life into a state of peace and bliss. I saw / felt something, the presence of something wonderful but heavy and old, and not meant for us mortal folks. I felt that I was on the very brink of entering this place, of finding something great, but I was always just on the edge. It was so long, and so tiring, and I was just waiting to experience this thing. Next thing I know I'm back to the real world, and I never had the chance to experience the greatness. I was a passenger in a car driving home from holiday to celebrate my high school graduation when the car swerved and the driver hit an embankment. The car flew into the air and bounced off the ground 3 times, and I was asleep when it happened. I should have at least been hospitalized, and when ambulances for the driver, police and passers-by stopped, everyone mentioned how it's a miracle that we were alive at all. But when it was happening, I didn't have time to open my eyes before I experienced a violent force I couldn't have imagined. Kinda felt like I was put in a metal box and shaken around, you know, which is what was happening, and my head was so weirdly clear. I just had this intense feeling of like, God no, the car is crashing. This is happening, and I didn't feel any pain. I got banged up significantly, and I had this unbelievably overwhelming feeling that I was not ready to die. I was going to get out of that car, that my life was not over, and it was like my soul just said, no. I'm not exactly religious, but I've always tried to form a relationship with at least my idea of God, and in those incredibly fast, confusing seconds, I'd care if it was my brain doing what humans' brain do when they freak out, but I really felt like I was talking to God when I thought, not today, thank you, I'm not ready. It was such a peaceful, intense presence, and I've never been the same since. I can't ever forget that feeling like I was not alone. And I really want to believe I'm right about that. I had a grand mal seizure. From what I was told, I stopped breathing, got CPR, came to thinking I was just sleeping, no recollection of it. I came back discombobulated, confused, thrashing around with EMTs. I got to the hospital and was placed on a crash cart, had multiple EKGs. I honestly thought I was going to die, but to be honest, nothing flashed before my eyes. When you die, it's like that period of time between when you fall asleep and when you wake up that you can't remember. When you wake up, especially if you don't remember even having a dream, that is death. You fall asleep, you just never wake up. I had a friend who tried to end her life. She told me when they brought her back to life, it felt like electric lava running through her veins. She didn't see any light, no life flashing before her eyes. It was nothingness. The way I explained it above is the best way I can explain it. 3 times. Once, I drowned. Did see flashes of memories, but everything was a jumble. I was fighting for my life against the person drowning me, and there came a point where, when telling about this, I tell people that my lizard brain took over. I'm not a violent person, and I guess my brain decided to kick me out while it did what had to be done. I remember floating above myself, looking down and watching myself headbutt and bite at the person who was drowning me. My arms were not free to fight them, and being initially horrified at the sheer animalistic frenzy of what I was doing and how I was acting. Strangely, when it got to this point and my conscience was no longer in charge, I felt very spiritually and emotionally peaceful, if that makes sense. I'm atheist, so interpret that as you will. Another time, first time, actually, the drowning was about 2 years later, when I was 12 to 13. I hallucinated while I nearly froze to death. 1 minute I was freezing and scared and miserable, and the next, it was a warm sunny day, and I was sipping lemonade at a table with other ladies a la Southern Belle. I'm from the deep south. The only reason I'm alive today is because some part of my brain swam up through the illusion and informed me that something just wasn't right, and then dragged me out of it. I finally found a house nearby and knocked on the door, and the person who opened it literally dropped the breakfast in her hand and screamed, saying I was blue. I imagine I sat there sipping lemonade for quite a while, if I had time to turn blue. Another time, as an adult, I dated a guy who was into joking. He miscalculated once and damn near strangled me. All that extended flailing around you see on TV is bullshit. It only took a couple of seconds for me to lose the ability to move or make any kind of indication at all. For the record, though, I felt very peaceful as I started going. No visions, no tunnels or angels, or whatever. Just like a slow fade on a movie. I was essentially falling asleep. I think your brain handles death according to your own beliefs and expectations. I consider death to be the end of it all. No afterlife or anything, just non-existence. Also, I'm not afraid of death. So when my brain thought it was time to do the thing, it started work on presenting me with the eternal dreamless sleep that I expected it to be like.